It's time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE, and we welcome back in Mayor Bob Morgan, who's been off for a few weeks. I trust you had a great Christmas. And
we had a good Christmas, Doug, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, good to see you here.
Yeah.
You're making your way through the fog today. Been a little foggy this week.
Yes, but I think, all of us that have been in Nebraska for 60 years or so.
It's pretty mild.
Oh, my. I think I remember those times that it got below zero on December 1st, and it didn't warm up until Valentine's Day.
Yeah. And we still could get that. Could use the moisture, but...
We could.
I prefer rain, if possible.
Yeah, and I mean, a little snow, ground cover. I'm just amazed as I look at yards and the golf courses and some of the other parks.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still really pretty green for sitting here.
It's amazing for this time of year.
It really is.
Well, we did get in a question before the program today, but I believe it's a county-directed question, so I really can't answer it. But the question was, when are they planning, and I assume they is the county, planning the town hall events to discuss zoning? I know there was a suggestion from their county planning commission to set up a committee that would kind of take public input on various zoning issues. I know it started out as CAFO regulations, big livestock operations, but can't give you an answer on that one. That would be for the county to deal with, I guess.
Yes, I will defer that to the county. I think they might have some things planned, sounds like, but as far as the city's involved, it doesn't involve us.
Yeah. I think you had one zoning issue this week, but that was on rezoning a parcel of property. We'll talk about that.
You bet. And didn't really change any of the rules or regulations when it comes to zoning.
Yeah. Maybe just a quick look back at 2023. We gave your county board chairman counterpart a chance to kind of respond to what type of year it was. How was it for the city of Beatrice, do you think?
Well, I think overall it was a good year. I think we did a number of projects that I think really will benefit the city in the future. We know that the water main through downtown was a pain, to be real honest, for everybody. But again, that won't have to be done for another 100 years. I think we took care of a number of items on that project that we really needed to do so we wouldn't have to disrupt that whole process over again. So I think that really is really good. I think the having a redundant line coming over the water from the well field and the well fields we have is also another really strong plus for the city. And I think, in a lot of respects, I think the committees that we set up for the ordinance and the downtown revitalization and Dempster's have been good to take a look at what we need to do. I think we're finding Gary's done a really good job with the ordinances. Ordinances are difficult because the hardest thing that we have to keep in mind is that everybody has rights. And so you've got a neighbor that his rights or her rights might differ from what you think your rights are. And so trying to find some common ground there that actually is constitutionally correct is really a struggle. And so I think Gary's done a good job of looking and bringing that committee together at a number of items that have kind of been ordinance for either for a number of years or ordinance that just need another relook. And I know we'll talk a little bit about junked vehicle code. It was one we just looked at. And so I think he's done a good job. I think Ted's done a good job as you look at Dempster's on what you can do. I think we took down a building there and continues to look about how that process will work. I think that's exciting that, we're at least taking a look at how can we get down a building that a lot of people know just need to come down. And so he's done a good job there. And then, of course, you've got Terry with a downtown revitalization, and he works with Main Street and kind of a downtown revitalization group that I think has really kept their finger on the pulse, not only of how do you revitalize downtown, but even taking a look at properties that we want to try to make sure that work with the owners to have some upkeep and try to maintain as many solid buildings as we have in the downtown. So those three and the members of those committees have done a good job.
The infrastructure things, water lines, sewer lines, streets, things like that, people don't get as excited about because they're in the ground. They're there, and we kind of take for granted, but they wear out after a while, and you have to do things like that.
You do, and that's one of the one thing that I learned a lot. The first year of mayor is you sit there on the council for 8 years and you think, oh gee, this is going to be easy, and it's not. Just like people might run and get on the council, and they find out, oh, well, it's not as easy as we thought to make this or that change. But when it comes to infrastructure, I kind of had my eyes open, because the infrastructure, it's really like the heart and the veins in your body. That's what keeps the city working. And without water, or without electricity, or without sewage, it would not be a very pleasant experience if we were out of those for a week or two based on some natural disaster. And so I think early on, we wanted to make sure, and let's need to really give Mayor Worth some credit as well, because we had the opportunity for that SRF loan to do a lot of this infrastructure. And so, yes, they were costly, but when you look at the interest rate today, we got in there doing those projects at 0% or 1%. And so in the long run, that's a huge financial savings rather than having bonds at 4% to do a project. And so when you put a pencil to those projects, thinking ahead and planning has been really worthwhile. And that started clear back, that started a couple of years ago. And that's one of the things that I have really come to appreciate with our city administrator, is that he is always planning, hopefully 2 to 4 years ahead. And you don't see it from the public's perspective, but once you get into office, you realize how much stuff can get done if you plan, and how many dollars can be saved to try to not raise the property tax any higher than we have to.
Before we take a break here, from a finance standpoint, in terms of course, this past year, everybody knows things cost a lot more. Inflation was up significantly, especially in the beginning part of the year, and has since eased somewhat. But from a city standpoint, as far as your revenues, property tax revenue, sales tax revenue, seemed like you made it through without a lot of heartache.
We did. Probably the biggest thing that really bothers us is the fact that even though we had budgeted for some items, we couldn't get them. I think we're still, a perfect example is right now, I think there's a pretty good reserve in the electric department's budget at BPW. We're also still waiting for at least one $750,000 truck. And so that, I think, was a challenge for our finance people to figure out. I mean, Hannah would go, well, when's the truck going to come in? Well, since we have a biannual budget and it's over September 30 and then it doesn't come in, now you got to make some adjustments for carryover for 24. But we're starting to see that slack off a little bit. I think there's still a long wait for some specialty vehicles. And that falls in line with electric company. It falls in line with an ambulance. It falls in line if, some point in time in the near future we need to replace a fire engine. I think right now it's 30 years old and it's working, but we also don't want to have a situation where you get to a fire and it does not work.
One other thing I guess I thought of, staffing issues on the public safety side, especially in the latter part of the year. Well, basically from about midsummer on, I think, got to be a bit of a challenge.
It did. It did. We had to make some moves and salary adjustments for the police department. That was kind of a huge hit to the budget. But on the other side of the coin, that's an area that is ever present and becoming more and more important as we move forward with the way things have been.
Mayor Bob Morgan with us today on Ask the Mayor. We'll be back with more in a moment. We're back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan as we continue on our program today. Seems like, I was going to say Monday night. Tuesday night's meeting was kind of the night of the consulting contract. You had a lot of agreements that you approved on. I think drainage studies, the downtown development thing was a renewal with Southeast Nebraska Development District. Yeah. Then for certain grant searches and things like that, people might ask why so many consultant agreements?
Well, I ask that question a lot too. And it really goes back whether it's here or whether it's, with the college. It seems like anymore you have to do a study before you can do anything. And a lot of the grants that are out there, which the grants really help us get projects done, require those studies. I think one that we didn't talk about is we have a Safe Street study, which will help us apply for a bigger federal loan to improve streets and infrastructure for the city. But you got to do the study first. Just like we have a couple of areas that we want to look at the drainage. I think Tributary 44, I think that's in mostly the second ward.
First or second ward, yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got out there by Lake Ladue in that area. We want to make sure that the water flows through and we don't have any maybe flood issues or whatever. And, to do it right, you really need somebody to come in and tell you what the best impact is. Now, with both of those drainage studies, I do know down the road there will be public input, because as you have drainage that runs through your backyard as a property owner, you certainly want to have some input on maybe how to take care of those and have some choices of whether you do it or not. But to do the study right, it does lay out how the best options are to continue with water drainage, runoff, and those type of things.
If you did a lot of that work in-house, in some cases, would that be possible, or would just the amount of work that you're adding to what those departments are already doing, it just becomes sort of unworkable?
It's probably unworkable. I mean, when you think about it, James is busy with a number of things from an engineering perspective, especially trying to approve big projects that need to be built, and making sure that everything else, and actually making sure that when we do have projects of any size, that we control the runoff at that point. Because some of these issues with the runoff happened 10, 12, 15 years ago, when people weren't quite as aware of what runoff will do. And so I think James has done a great job. When you lay out a project, he takes a look at, does it need a SWIFT plan, and does it need a drainage plan, and do you need a detention pond? And so his hands are really busy because he's a one-man shop. And the other side of the coin is there's so many things that go into, whether it's a drainage study or an engineering plan, some of those type of things, it takes a lot of, you go to JEO. So to do Tributary 44, they're going to have 3 or 4 people working on it.
Yeah.
And those 3 or 4 people have different levels of expertise, maybe from landscape to drainage to engineering. And so, you have an input from 3 or 4 other people. So I think that really is the place where that has to be, and we just need to understand that that's part of life, is paying people to do studies. I think that we can't get much done if we don't, and we can't get grant money if we don't. And to get those things paid for by grants just continues to keep our property tax down.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people see the cost figures of the consulting studies and they go, wow, that's a lot of money. But in some cases, the cost is paid for out of a grant itself, isn't it? And I take, for instance, like the downtown redevelopment thing, where Send is hired to administer that. Their cost comes out of the grant you receive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And helps the downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I think the other thing we do is we know that, and I don't know the proper name of it, but we know that there's a number of, a huge amount of money set aside for infrastructure and for roads. And I think we call it the RAISE grants. Those are at the federal level. And to get those, there's a lot of requirements about return on investments and some of the benefits and those type of things. And it takes an expert, because one of the things that we did do is we hired, I think it was Olson Associates, to help us get the return on investment figures on a RAISE grant that we're applying at the federal government that could bring in anywhere from $15 to $20 million, which if you get that, it's well worth it. Yeah. Will you get it? I don't know. But without doing it correctly, we wouldn't be able to have that opportunity.
Kind of goes back to the work that other consultant did on the Hannibal Park project, where you paid for the consulting contract, but then you look at how much money they've helped bring in terms of private sponsorships, naming rights, and things like that. And now it doesn't seem so expensive to have done that.
We ended up getting a number of dollars that we would never gotten.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. One thing from Tuesday night's meeting, and the 80 acres that we acquired last year from a local farm family just in the north part of where there is the Gage County Industrial Park, rezoned that from agriculture to general industry. Next step, annexation, is that basically the...
I would guess that'll be the next step, okay. Yes. Okay. To rezone it to industrial was kind of a housekeeping thing, because I think it was zoned agriculture. One of the things that we kind of noted on Tuesday night is that we rezoned it as one block and didn't have lots laid out. And basically what we find is with industries, they kind of determine what lots they want, and so you go through a replotting process that is over and over and over. So this time we just rezoned it, and we'll draw the plats as we have industry come in.
You know, at one time there was discussion about, and it was somewhat concerning that you were running out of space for where industry could locate. So
Yes.
having 80 acres out there right near infrastructure is a pretty good deal.
It is. It puts us in a really good spot. And again, it sets us up maybe not for today, but for 20 years down the road.
Yeah. The a little bit south of there, the Radiant Tech agreement on power use that was approved Tuesday night. I'm not going to ask you about the details, what it says, because I read that, and I tell you what, it gave me a headache. You got to really know what you're talking about to understand that. But in total, just in summary, they're going to be a large power user, and that benefits the city.
Yes, they're going to be a huge power user. We've worked with them, and they're really good people to work with. Pat Feist and Tobias worked hand in hand to get them here. The other plus about it is they use our surplus power. So, you know, the question out there is, let's use the example of it, was it 2021 when the vortex went through? That took a lot of power that we needed because everybody's trying to heat their homes. With this contract, they're buying excess power. So if a polar vortex went through, they would voluntarily shut down during the time of that high usage. And so there's no harm to the city, but it allows us to plan how to buy our power knowing that they're going to use the excess. So it's a win-win for the company, and it's a win-win for us, and it's a win-win for the electric department.
Okay. Also, on the retail side, commercial retail side, the company Nixon Enterprises is making use of tax increment financing. That's about to be finalized here pretty soon, going through all the steps it has to go through. But it's kind of a neat use of what's been kind of a vacant area. I know there's been food trucks lined up on there from time to time, but the area on the northeast corner of 6th and Monroe will eventually have a new restaurant and then some additional retail space in that.
Yes, it's wonderful. Nixon Enterprises, we're very glad to welcome them to City of Beatrice, and put a plug in for TIF. It really helps bring in economic development, and the food trucks are there, and that's okay. But a couple of years from now, we're going to have a really nice 3-storefront building right there.
Yeah. All right. Back with more to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Bob Morgan. To conclude our Ask the Mayor program today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, pepper you with a couple of questions we just got in during the break here. One is, has the city of Beatrice gotten a new police chief yet?
We have not. Quite honestly, Jay Murphy, as the police operations commander, is doing a very good job. We're sitting there taking a look at that position, but right now I think the police department is running really well under his direction. So at this point in time, we have not started a search. I think it's always good to take a look at what our people are doing, and quite honestly, we're very pleased with what we see. And so, we'll go down the road and as this structure for a little while.
Have a lot of familiarity there with an officer that's been with the department, I think, more than 3 decades or somewhere around there. So.
Yes, and like I said, it has been going fairly well, and so we'll keep moving forward in that direction at this point in time.
All right. Here's a question we hear every once in a while, and I know it's kind of crosses into other boundaries, but is the city going to continue to keep doing work that this caller feels private businesses are doing? And they cite as an example Mars recently taking over garbage collection for the Odell area.
Well, if we back up of how we got into the Mars, we would have loved to have Van Bush still doing our garbage service. We went out for some bids. There's a bigger company that would have come in and cost us a lot more money from the consumer side. And so, yes, Mars has worked very well, and we'll continue to operate Mars. As you look at the economies of scale and you pick up some of the smaller communities such as Diller and those type of places, they found value in Mars as well. It is a self-sustaining operating arm where it has to make its own money. And at this point in time, when we pick up those little ones, it helps us keep the price the same for all the patrons, not only in Diller but also in Beatrice. And ultimately, we want to try to make sure that, in case of Mars, we provide the consumer the value of a lower garbage service than what you'll see in most surrounding areas.
Yeah. It's highly regulated business, too, hauling and storing waste.
It is.
As well.
It is.
Kind of get to the point where sometimes you think, when this question's brought up, you get the feeling that some people think you can just buy a couple of dump trucks and go pick up garbage and throw it somewhere, but it's not quite that easy.
No, and it's all connected also with the landfill. Mm-hmm. So as we fill one landfill and we start building the other landfill, one of the things that we are in control of is our own destiny. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to be tied into high fees of hauling our garbage all the way to Milford, because that's about the closest other refuge place. And so a lot of thought went into it to try to bring the best value we can to the city.
Yeah, years ago there was a lot of discussion over do you go landfill or transfer station.
That's right.
And time again, it seems like the better deal for everybody involved has been the landfill.
For many, many years to come.
Yeah. A couple of quick things just to note here. Wondered if there was any update on the executive director position of Keep Beatrice Beautiful. I know that opened up at the end of the year because the director and his wife were moving away, and and it is kind of a volunteer. It takes some dedication to do that job, and didn't know if there was anybody that had been named or
not at this time.
Okay,
no.
Right. Still applications?
Still looking at it.
Still looking. The other thing is a nonprofit going to use part of the lower level of the city auditorium, Mother to Mother Ministry, on a $1 annual lease. I didn't realize until I walked down there the other day just to kind of look around.
Sure.
It's kind of removed from public view, so you don't think about it, but there's quite a bit of space unused that somebody could make use of there.
It is, but we're really, Mother to Mother Ministries has leased it for at least a year. Mm-hmm. They are setting up, I think, an opportunity, a place for youth to come after school. I think it's really something needed in the community, and they stepped up and asked if they could do it and if we would be able to find a place for them to do it. I think starting out at, the auditorium is a great opportunity place for them. $1 lease, some people might say, well, why are you renting it out for $1? Well, we would like it to really be a nice place for the youth to go, and they have a desire to really make this go, and so we feel very blessed that Mother and Mother stepped up to the plate for this opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be working pretty well with the community food pantry in their new headquarters.
Exactly.
To the west there.
And it's not probably unlike when we used to have the one stop out at the college, where you had a number of nonprofit businesses. It's kind of nice to have kind of a one stop there where we can help out different. We don't, but we give it to people that are doing a good job, like the food pantry and Mother to Mother Ministries and CASA and those type of things.
I neglected to ask you soon enough about the junked vehicle ordinance that you're discussing, but we can save that for another program because this Tuesday the council voted just on one reading.
Correct.
So there'll be a couple other required passages of that amendment before it would go into.
Yeah, and like anything, we have to take a look at both sides of people's constitutional rights. I know you'll see some increases in fines, and we're going to try to figure out how we can enforce a little bit better on the things that we can enforce.
Okay. Well, we'll save that for another day.
Okay.
Did want to make mention, though, of course, that 2024 is an election year, too. Not for your office. You're in mid-term of the 4-year term, but you do have some council positions that will be up.
Yes. If you look at how we're set up, we have 2 council members for each ward. We have 4 wards. They're on alternating 2-year, process. So there'll be 1 candidate position open in wards 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mm-hmm. First day to actually put your name in the name to be put on the ballot will be tomorrow, January 5th. I will tell you that I would encourage anybody who's interested in running to take that opportunity to run. People might say, do you need experience in any type of committees or levels? And what I can tell you is that when I ran for city council, maybe 9 years ago, I did not have experience at the council or any other what I would call political position. Mm-hmm. I think as I look at all the council members and myself, what we're really trying to do is the best thing we can do. I know we have some people that may or may not agree with that, but we're trying to put this city in the best spot so 20 years from now it's in a better place. And so we would welcome anyone to throw their name into the hat and run for those open council positions.
People might first off ask, well, what kind of time commitment is it? You have a couple of meetings per month, but really it's kind of what you want to put into it as to how effective you can be.
It is. I mean, adding the committees have added a little bit of time for everybody. But on the other side of the coin, you're right. You kind of put in the time that you have and your expertise.
And we would point out they are policy positions. They're not day-to-day operations of the city.
Yeah.
There's a reason those two things are sort of split up.
Absolutely. We are in charge of oversight, policy, and procedure. We are not in charge of day-to-day operations.
Not looking over the shoulder of a department
Absolutely not.
chief or something like that. So if you want to run for city council, I guess you
or any.
make a
We got a
decision
number
or-
of positions.
Yeah.
I mean, across the county will be open, and we have this change every 2 years, and it's a great opportunity for somebody to get a little experience that I think they will find rewarding.
All right. Mayor, thanks for being with us. Appreciate you coming in here on the first session we have
no
for
problem.
2024.